Welcome to another episode of the Creative Den Pod. This is where we try to help creatives as well as entrepreneurs. Today is going to be a good one, like nothing we've ever heard before. This is Marshelle Barwise here with us. She is the Phoenix Mercury Chaplain,
Yes.
as
Author.
well as author of 3 books.
Yes.
You
Author
are
of
the
3 books.
host of Inclusale Podcast
Yep.
and executive sales strategist.
Yes.
Yes, I know you do other things, so I'll let you go ahead and plug yourself. Tell us what you do. Thanks for joining us on the show. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Akin. I love what you're doing. Let's first and start by that. Thank you
Yes,
for being a creative that helps, expose other creatives. I love
yes.
that. Yeah, I feel like you kind of touched on a lot of what I do.
Okay.
They say jack of all trades, never tried to be, but
Mhm,
whatever I like, I don't let the fact that, hey, I'm already doing this stop
mhm,
me from exploring something new. And
for sure.
so that's how I became an author.
Okay.
That's how I make sure I stay true with, like, my faith is really important to me, and
Mm,
sharing the gospel and having that opportunity through being a chaplain. I keep moving forward in that.
mhm,
And I've been in sales pretty much my entire career to
okay.
some degree over a span of 20 years,
Uh-huh.
and learned a lot about that. And it is really what birthed the idea of Inclusale.
Okay.
And Inclusale, it's a brand
Okay.
starting out with a podcast, really just trying to expose people who may not be so familiar with sales
Mm,
and how it works. There's also some negative stigma around
for
sales,
sure. For
like
sure.
the used car salesman type stuff, right? And so I feel like, obviously, I know I'm not a used car salesman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really big on integrity, being honest,
Yeah.
but closing the deal,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you can do all of that and still be a person of character. And so
Okay.
that's what I try to elevate when
Okay.
I'm talking on Inclusale.
All right. Nice. So you're starting with just podcast right now.
Yep.
Where do you see it going?
So
Inclusive.
I'm starting with podcasts, but really I've been building more clarity around who I want to reach.
Okay.
And who I want to reach are people who are in customer service
Mm,
or service-based type roles, and they would like to make more money,
mm,
right? So they're like, "Hey, I'm working, I'm hardworking, I'm high potential,
yeah.
right? I'm goal oriented, and I would love to just expand my career and make more money." And I believe that a really great opportunity would be for them to transition into sales to do
Nice.
exactly that,
Okay.
where they can leverage their service skills that they've built over how many years,
Mhm.
right? But then now take that and turn it into sales,
Right.
make more money, and still help people.
Nice. I think everyone is in the place where they need to make more money right now.
Right. That
Everybody
inflation
is
ain't
that.
playing with
It's
us.
not. So that's why I'm figuring out this framework for me as well
Hmm.
to help creatives turn their gifts into businesses.
I love
You
it.
know, I haven't, this is the first time I'm actually speaking about it. It's been sitting in my mind for about 3 months or so.
Hmm.
So I've just been playing with the idea. So yeah, I think it's gonna be good. That's why I am excited because there's a lot of stigma around creatives not being salesy. We
Hmm.
do not understand how to, and I think it starts from packaging. How do you package yourself and how do you sell
Hmm.
that? So a lot of us do not know how to sell.
Hmm.
Would you say that's true?
I think that's true. And I feel like a lot of times it's because sales has been overcomplicated,
Mm,
right?
how do we simplify it?
Yeah. So I think what's really important, I was thinking about this and I was also thinking about you, right? Because
Yes.
when I see people who are doing great things, it's like I would love to see them get out there a lot
Mm,
more. And one of the things I think is really important is to ask yourself some discovery questions.
okay.
Okay. First, you have to really get to the brass tacks of, do you really believe in what you're offering?
Mm,
Right. And I think sometimes people struggle with the quote unquote sell
right.
because they don't believe in what they're offering.
Mm,
And it may not be because what you're offering isn't good. It's just you're not doing it in a way that really resonates with you and you feel like you're offering value. So
right.
I say that's the first discovery question you should ask yourself as a creative or as an entrepreneur
Mhm.
is, what am I offering, and do I truly believe in it?
Yeah.
Right? Because when
Yeah.
that conviction is there, it changes the way that you
Changes
talk
everything.
about it, the way you interact with people when you talk about it.
Mm,
I think another thing that's really important is, after you get to the belief of it, which is the foundation, you have to ask yourself, okay, I believe in this, but what am I offering?
mm,
What's the value?
okay.
Right? That's the thing that'll really trip me up because, like I said, I'm about integrity, sales integrity,
Mm,
right?
mm.
And I think a lot of people, they can put the integrity aside.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
that person.
Okay.
So they could sell something that they don't even really believe is offering
Right.
value. And they're like, boom, close the sale.
True.
I wanna feel like we both won
Mm,
when I close the sale,
mm,
right? And so I just ask that question, what's the value that I'm offering?
okay.
What are people gonna get out of this
Okay.
when they do this? And in the business sense, it's called value proposition,
Right.
right? Um, Outside of that, then the most important thing
Mhm.
of it all is, who am I offering this to
Okay.
and why?
Okay.
You got to understand that. I think that's another reason why sales feels so hard is a lot of times people are trying to sell to everybody.
Mhm.
They're not disqualifying people who probably won't be a good fit for what they're selling.
True.
And so if I'm trying to sell to 100 people when really in that 100 people, there's only 20 people who would be a
A
good
fit.
fit,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to get discouraged because I'm going to keep hearing no and getting rejection,
Right.
right? At one after another. When if I was just like, you know what, out of these 100 people, who am I really trying to target? It's these 20.
Mhm.
Now it's going to feel a lot less resistance because I'm very clear on who I'm
Mhm.
offering to and the value I'm going to provide them
Right.
with,
Right.
right? And so I think those are three core things that people miss out on,
Mhm.
which makes getting over that barrier,
Right.
i.e. sales,
Yeah.
a lot harder.
So that's believe in what you're
Mhm.
putting together.
Yep.
The second one is to
The value.
value of what you're
Yep.
putting together, your value proposition, and then the third one is to know who you're targeting.
Know who you're targeting,
Yeah.
right? Don't be afraid to say this is not for those people.
Mm.
And the truth is like we live in a society, that bandwagon society, right?
Everyone jumps on.
Right,
Yeah.
everybody jumps on, and so sometimes, like, you isolate and say, "Okay, these are the 20 people," and in the process of really directing your communication to those 20 people and
Mhm.
really trying to present the value to those 20 people, then all of a sudden, like, another 10 out of that
Yeah.
100 start being like, "Well,
Yeah.
it looks like it's helping them,"
Right. Let
right?
me
And
know.
they start to come on, and it seems crazy. It's like, "I thought this was only my market." You were right,
Right.
but people are attracted to good things, even if
Totally.
it's not 100% exactly what they wanted or
Right.
needed.
Like looking at companies like Amazon,
Mhm.
companies like Apple. Apple targets a specific group of people, but
Yep.
everyone and their mom and their grandma are using an iPhone.
Right, exactly.
Right. So okay. So now take us through this journey on how you got to become an executive sales strategist.
Yeah, so really, like I said, a lot of my career, I've been in some form of sales. Now, I do have a service background, which is why I'm saying, hey, I'm passionate about taking
Mm.
people from service into sales because I know that pathway. I've walked it.
That was gonna be a question I was gonna ask
Yeah.
you, and I will say right now, what is easier to sell, a product or a service?
Mm, that is a good question. Okay, Mr. Questions over here. I would say, oh, that's hard, to be
Mm,
honest.
okay.
I think there's challenges to both,
Mhm.
and sometimes one will feel easier than others.
Right.
I would say a product is
Yeah.
probably easier to
Yeah.
sell,
Okay.
right? Because a lot of times it's tangible
Right.
and people can really envision, like, it's like selling a house,
Mhm.
right? When you buy a house, you're in 2 sales transactions. In most
Mhm.
cases, people don't have all the cash, so they're taking out a mortgage.
Right.
That's one form of sales,
Right.
right? Somebody's selling you money, and then there's another form of sales is the house.
Mhm.
It's easier in most cases to sell a house because people can envision it, they can
Right.
see themselves, they can touch it, they can feel it, all of that stuff. Whereas when they're shopping around for a mortgage,
Mhm.
it's a lot
It's a lot
different.
harder. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not as tangible, but it is it's connected to something tangible,
Okay.
but, you get the point.
Alright. Alright, so go ahead, with your story on how you got to be where you are now.
Yeah, so, having been in roles that some were very service oriented, but there was, like, some upsell
Mhm.
component, it kinda gave me a taste for sales,
Mhm.
right? And I remember specifically having gotten this customer service role, and I was in the training group with these people, and this Black woman at the time, she was like, "Man, I really should just go get a sales job."
Mm.
Now, we're all in service, we're all about to start this customer service role, and that just sparked a conversation that happened within this group,
Right.
and a lot of people were like, "Oh, sales is really hard, I've never done sales. Why do you like sales?" And she was just like, "I don't know, you can make more money and like you're just if you perform well, you can do
Mhm.
better." And she was talking about it. And that kind of planted a seed in me, and that was when I was a
Okay.
lot younger. And so I thought about that. And I just obviously went into this role and they started to have some upselling opportunities,
Mhm.
and I was just naturally really good at it.
Mm.
And so I don't think that's how it's always gonna be,
Okay.
by the way, but I think the reason why I was good at it is because I knew the product really well,
Mm.
and it made it easy for me to talk about it and connect the dots on what people could actually add on to make their overall outcome better.
Yeah.
And so that started it, and then after that, I was referred to a job, a medical sales type role.
Mhm.
It was like an inside person that I knew, which
Okay.
is a lot of times what happens.
Right.
It's very hard for people to go from a service-based role into sales because sales leaders are like, "We want people who have experience,
Mhm.
we gotta make money, right? Everybody in a seat needs to know how to convert."
Right.
And so it was me being connected and having somebody who had that trust already to refer me that got me in the door. And then from that, it was difficult because it was a different type of sale,
Mhm.
but I learned the hard knocks of it, right?
Mm.
I learned that, hey, you gotta fall down,
Yeah.
you gotta get over that that fear component of rejection, right? Because that's a big thing that also deters people. And it gave me an opportunity to work through that in somewhat of a safe environment, right? Because I reported directly to the owner
Mm.
and he had a tough love conversation with me
Yeah.
one day. He was like, "You ain't closing enough." Right? I'm like, "Oh,
Oh, man.
you're nervous about being told no by the people that you're selling to, but you're also nervous about like not doing what you're supposed to do."
Right.
So I was like living in this very
Oh,
nervous stage.
man.
But I think that was a great experience for me because it taught me a lot. It taught me how to be um, just one, a graceful leader, a
Yeah.
compassionate leader, and someone who doesn't shame others.
Mm.
I want to show others, right?
Gotcha.
There's two different leaders.
For
People will
sure.
shame you for not knowing how to do
Right.
it, and others will realize you don't know how to do it and they'll show
For
you,
sure, yeah.
right?
Mm.
And so that's I feel like that's kind of without going into deep,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
long discussion, that kind of just started me on the path. And then from that, I was in insurance, I've done retail sales, like
Mm.
I said, I was in the medical space and I've been in loan and finance level type fintech sales
Mhm.
for quite some time,
Okay.
plus my own stuff with my book and all of
Nice,
that
nice,
stuff.
nice.
Mhm.
That's awesome. When you wrote your book, how did you position it to sell?
Yeah, so when I wrote my book, that was really hard. It was new territory for me, and honestly, I was just happy I wrote a book. I
Yeah.
told people for a while, it was like, I, God put that in my heart.
Right.
I had been journaling for a long time. I've always been a writer, been a poet, spoken word, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. And I remember driving and I just heard the title in my just pop up in my spirit. It was like um Eternal Makeover, Secrets to Beauty That
Mm.
Never Fades.
I actually have the book.
What?
I do. I don't know if you remember when, we are doing the whole thing with ABDC with,
Yes,
Kirsten,
yeah.
when we did the discipleship at you guys' house.
Yeah.
I think that was when I had the book. I have it somewhere upstairs.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, thank you. I
Of
appreciate the
course.
support.
Yeah.
But that title dropped into my heart and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so good." But I'm like, "I don't have, a
Mm.
book."
Mm.
And the Lord was like, "Yeah, you do." And just took me back to all of the journaling, the writing, the things that I've learned. And of
Mm.
course, it wasn't like just smack my journal
Right.
into a book. I had to structure it,
Right.
format it, and I was learning from scratch. But one thing I know how to do is to research, to ask questions, and to dig to
Mhm.
find out how to get to the end result. And my husband's really, really, really good at that. And so he
Yes.
was a huge support. And so I put the book together, learned how to do the book. And then after that, I was like, I got my first copy and I just kept looking at my purse like I'm just in disbelief, like, oh my God, I have a
Get
book.
a book,
Like this
yeah.
is real, you know? Nowadays, books, a lot of people are authors, which I think is fantastic.
Mhm.
But at this time, I didn't really even know many people who were authors.
Right.
But then the reality hit me. My dad said, he was like, that's so great. He was like, but now you got to get the word out. I'm like,
Right. That's the hard part.
talk about killing my vibe, you know? I was like, "Dang." But he was right. And so, I just started to try to get creative. I
Mhm.
like making graphics.
Mm.
I like being able to just own my brand,
Okay.
right? And so, I did a one thing I did that I thought was really helpful is I did what do you call it? It's like where you get a group. I wanna call it's not a focus group, but kind of like a focus group. So
Okay.
I actually started off by having people, a small group
Mhm.
of women. I was very targeted with what type of women I wanted, and they read it and I had them give me feedback. And all of that was meant to help to make the book better before
Right.
I actually came out with the regular book.
Gotcha.
But from that, I feel like I had people who were invested
Mm.
because they've been on the journey with me,
Mhm.
who wanted to share. And so I think that's a really big thing. If you have a new project, don't be afraid to like let people see it in its raw state,
Mm.
close to done, but in its
Right.
raw state, and to give you feedback.
Right.
Because when people feel like they have a little bit of a fingerprint in
Mhm.
it, they're more apt to want to help push it,
Totally,
right?
totally,
And
totally.
it's easier. I mean, because this is beyond sales, this is marketing.
Mhm.
It's easier to market something when you're not doing it alone,
Right.
when you have a group of
Group of
people
people.
helping you. And so that was the first thing I did. I did that with my first book, and I even did it with my second book. And I incorporated a mixer. You have to give people an incentive on what's in it for them,
Mm.
right? I don't care how nice, how saved, how whatever, right?
Right.
When it comes to like business,
Yep.
this is another thing I realize, and I think if you're watching this, this is really important if you want to go into entrepreneurship. I didn't know this earlier. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. You think about all these people, my family, my friends, they're going to help me out. They're going to, like, it's going to be so easy because I'm going to have all
Yeah.
these people buying. And Really, once you say you're a business owner, you have a product,
Mhm.
it's like your family and friends look at you
Yep.
differently. And and I'm saying this, it's not a bad thing. It's just you're now an entrepreneur. It's your job to, one, make something that people want, but then
Mhm.
two, communicate it in a way that they want it. And your family and your friends become customers,
Mhm.
right? They're not looking at you like their homie or their sister or whatever. They're like, I'm a customer, and either I want to patronize what you're offering or not,
Mhm.
or I don't.
Right.
And I had to learn that earlier on. And to me, it's important to learn that too, because you might be
Definitely.
walking around disgruntled, like they didn't buy my
Yeah, buy my
stuff, they didn't
stuff.
support
Yeah.
my stuff, they ain't share my stuff, right? But a lot of them too, in their own heart, they want their own thing too.
True.
Right?
Facts. Facts.
And I don't have all the money in the world to be like patronizing everybody's stuff just
Right.
because I love you.
Right.
Like, I have to want what you're offering.
Totally.
And so that's a really big thing I think people need to shift in their mind when it comes to sales, marketing, and just running a business
Mhm.
is you really have to think, will people want this? Family, friends, or strangers?
Mhm.
Right? That's important.
Oof. That's good. That's good. All right. This is the selfish part for me.
All
This is not the
right.
part you want. I really need help with figuring out how to sell because so back in the day, when I was going through this journey of finding who I want to be
Hmm.
after college, I went through so many jobs, but the first one that I had was a sales job.
What? Okay.
I was selling kitchen knives, Cutco. I don't know if you heard of them.
Okay. Hold on one second. I got to tell you this. I didn't talk about that,
Yeah,
but I had a short stint.
really.
The door-to-door thing,
Yeah.
and I was like, after watching this guy who was sweating, I was like, "No." And the funny thing is when he started, he was like, "You're gonna love this job." He showed
Mhm.
me his before picture. He was very overweight, but he
Yeah,
was
it was
slender now. And I was like, because he was walking in the sun in the summer. I was like, "I already know this ain't gonna be for me, but
yeah.
I'm just gonna go through this training period," you
Oof.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that and it didn't obviously it didn't pan out. But a lot of creatives, a lot of people that build their own thing, this is the hard part for them. How do we sell?
Mhm.
How do we get over the fact that we just have to put ourselves out there and talk
Mhm.
about the thing that we're doing? So for me as a video production company, what do you think I should do as a service-based video production company?
Mhm.
What do you think my first thing should do when I'm trying to sell to people?
Okay. Imma say what I
Let's
said,
do it.
right? You gotta be the first believer.
Mm,
So you really gotta condition yourself to get over the fear of like, what if people don't want this? Or, how are they gonna perceive me? You gotta go in fearless
mhm,
with like a sincere belief that one, what I offer is good. And I don't care if other people do it, they don't do it like I can.
right.
Or what is your business
Video
name?
production.
What's the
Creative
name?
collection.
Creative Collection.
Yeah.
They're not gonna do it like Creative Collection.
Mm,
You have to have that sincere, unshakable belief,
yeah.
okay? That's first and foremost. Two is you need to really identify your market, like, who are you going after? It's
Mhm,
time for you to get choosy
mhm,
and disqualify people that you feel like are probably gonna waste your time,
right.
right? You only have so much time. You only have so many people you can market to. We're not Pepsi, Coca-Cola, all these
Yeah,
people with, like, these massive brand budgets,
right.
right? So we have to be intentional. So if you're like, "Hey, I wanna do more luxury
Mhm,
things," right? "I wanna do more family things," you gotta really hone in on
mhm,
what's your sweet spot,
okay.
okay? Now after you do that, now where do these people hang out?
Mm,
Where are these people at, right?
mhm,
Because that's why you need to make your presence most known, and you gotta go in there and you gotta hit triggers. And
mhm,
so this is what I tell people when I was running a sales department, is I believe the key words, like the words that resonate with people
mhm,
are really important.
mm,
So if I know I'm serving these people and I'm trying to sell to them, I need to understand how they talk.
gotcha.
Because if I'm communicating the message in my own language, it
Mhm,
means the same thing,
right.
but to them, you're like over their head,
Mm,
right? Or it's not hitting them. So, one, I need to know where these people are. I need to know what are some trigger words or keywords that resonate with them. And I
mhm,
need to merge that into the way that I'm presenting my product,
gotcha.
right? That's really important.
Okay.
And then I think after you do that, once you get a customer or
Mhm,
you have somebody, you need to be intentional about having a way to get feedback from them.
mm,
It may not be like easy to sit down and be, okay, so why did you
tell me.
choose me
Yeah,
or what made
mhm,
me stand out? But those are things you should be asking
yeah,
people that became a customer of yours.
gotcha.
Like what stood out?
Yeah,
Because especially the ones you like. Now,
mhm,
those terror type customers, because some of those, you're like,
yeah,
that don't want to pay you or
oh,
asking for the hookup.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
We don't need more of you, right?
no,
We need more of the ones who understand the value of what I'm offering. Those are the ones you want to ask the questions.
okay,
So maybe you do a survey, or if you have the chance to just talk to them, you talk
mhm,
to them, write it down and do more of what they said is working and more of
totally.
what attracted them.
Okay.
and then just continue to rinse and repeat. And then don't be afraid to get help.
Mm,
If you know people who are good with sales, they want to help, or there's sometimes to partner or collaborate. I'm big on partnership and collaboration. It's going to take you so much further and
right.
so much further and to where you want to go faster versus doing it by yourself.
Okay. Is this where we begin a collaboration? Inclusale Creative Collection? I'm just kidding. But I think so. The first two of them, I think I've passed the hurdle of, okay, I think it was 2 years ago.
Good.
I've been doing this for 8 years now. 2 years ago, I finally believed in what I'm actually offering,
Yes.
and then,
Wait, can we pause for that really fast?
yes,
Because you've been doing it for eight
I've been
years,
doing this for 8 years.
right? And everybody needs to get that. He did for 8 years. He said only 2 years ago he
Yes.
got past that, right?
Right.
So this is a nugget. If you just start this year and you can get through it this year,
Mm-hmm.
then you're actually accelerating
Totally.
what could be your journey and your experience. But if it takes you 8 years, you're still good. Because look at Akin,
Yes.
right? So I just wanted to say that.
For sure. So 2 years ago, and I think the biggest part of it was my wife telling me, "Nah, you're good at this." And then I started believing in myself as well that I know exactly what I'm doing. I know how to do this video thing, right? And obviously there was a lot of distractions. I was trying to figure out, okay, do I create this whole agency of doing graphics as well, doing pictures, doing all of this other things, and it's just like my sweet spot is video, so I'm just gonna stick with that.
Yeah.
And that was something that the conclusion I came couple months ago. Really, I just about 2 weeks ago, I started like removing everything else from my website. I'm like, this is just video production.
Scaling down.
Scaling it down to really target the audience. Now, the number two thing is the audience, right?
Mhm.
Is I know for sure that I want to target businesses and entrepreneurs. I do not want to do the family pictures anymore.
Good.
I don't really want to do the weddings. I don't want to do all of these things that I've done in the past. I just
That's
wanna
high maintenance clientele anyway.
Yeah,
Let's be
exactly,
real.
exactly, so
But businesses and entrepreneurs where the money is
mhm,
at, they usually have a
that's what it
budget.
is, yep, so that's who I'm going with. Now the next 2 part, the feedback part is something I haven't done yet,
Mhm.
and I think sometimes getting feedback is like a fear thing. It's like,
Uh,
what are they actually gonna say
yeah,
about my services?
yeah.
But in return, that actually helps you,
Mhm.
to say, "Okay, this person said this, let me try to fix that."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, feedback and with that referrals.
Mhm.
That's the part too. It's like,
Yes.
I got your business. I was good enough to get your
Right.
business. Is there somebody else I know that you feel like, could benefit from my business?
True.
Like, cause that's where you're really in a good spot
Mhm.
is when the business starts to come to you, the leads start to come to you, right? And the
Yeah.
best way to do that is word of mouth and really just leveraging the relationship and the trust that you've already gained from people who've patronized your business and your
Totally.
services.
All right, this is good. This is really good. Question for you. Looking at when you're working with clients and people like that, how do you structure with your clients for them to get the best results?
So remember how I said starting with a lot of times when people talk about how do you learn sales or how do you learn anything, they try to go out and just research that. But to me, it starts with understanding you, why you want to do it, your mindset on things. But then when you're talking about the customer, once you get past that and you bring the customer in,
Hmm.
now that's where the role reverses and the discovery question is all about them.
Okay.
Right. So when I'm talking to a customer and I'm really trying to understand how I can best serve them, because sales is about serving
Mm-hmm.
and it's about being a solutionist. When I'm talking to them, I'm asking them questions. And based upon what they answer, here's another thing too. I'm sorry, I don't want to backtrack or
Go
confuse
ahead.
anybody.
Go ahead.
Sometimes salespeople will have a list of questions. Ask this and this and this and this, right? That does work. And I think it's okay when you're a beginner. But over time, you realize one of your secret weapons as a sales professional
Mm-hmm.
is the art of listening. It's the communication that people don't really like to tap into,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when you're talking, you ask the question. Once they answer it, you don't just immediately go to your next question. Like, let me ask my questions on here. If they say something that requires you to dig a little bit deeper,
Mm-hmm.
ask more about that,
Okay.
right? Because it's really about finding out what's important
Right.
to the person that you're trying to service sale,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really important. And you ask those questions and you take note or mental note if you don't have a good memory, write it down. And then based upon that, that's how I'm packaging my offer.
Okay.
That's how I'm tailoring the way I'm communicating the value of what I'm presenting to them
Right.
and how it's going to improve their life, their situation. Because they're telling me what they need.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell them what they need. And that's what a lot of people in sales do wrong is they know their offer and they would be like, oh, this is all the value and you need this, you need that.
Mm-hmm.
But that person, like, I don't need all that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they might be simple. You might only need to hone in on one
One thing.
value,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things from your value proposition. And so because here's another thing that's important. is the more you tell somebody, like, say if they're very simple, there's only one thing they're after. They might be like, I know how to do videos on my own. It's just I'm ready to take it to the next level and I want the quality to look really professional,
Right.
right? But you're talking about other things. Yeah, I have this whole team and they're going to come in and,
Mm.
all these things that they don't really care about.
Right.
If they tell you that, you could say, perfect.
Mm.
What I do is I specialize
Mm.
in making things look very professional, very clean. Let me show you that. Let me show you
Mhm.
some examples. That's all I'm going to focus on so they can envision themselves going from these videos that might look grainy and
Yeah.
unprofessional to like your level,
Mm.
right? They can see that. But if I start telling them all this other things, it's going to confuse them. It's going to
Right.
give them too much to think about.
Right.
And then that's when you end up in think about prison with the person. They're like,
Yeah.
let me think about it,
Right.
and
No.
then they eventually ghost you.
Yeah, that's good because, service-based, businesses where it's like you're here to help people. You're
Hmm.
not here to do the thing that you just know how to do. Like, obviously, you know how to help them, so pick the specific thing that they actually need help with
Right.
and actually help them with that thing.
Yep. Exactly.
That's good.
And
Okay.
they feel like you know them,
Right.
like you get
Exactly.
me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I've worked with sales professionals for a long time, ran sales divisions, different stuff like that. And from the people I see succeed, that would be my top salespeople and the
Mhm.
people who I know have what it takes because I wouldn't have hired them
Yeah.
that really just don't quite make it. A lot of it starts with the belief and the confidence, right? Believing in what they're selling, believing in their ability to sell it,
Mhm.
and then it comes down to understanding who they're selling to. It's really that is kind of, I guess, the pyramid or the system
Okay.
that they have to break through,
Right.
right? And then there's some other technical things, but, I don't
Yeah.
wanna boil the ocean
No, no,
today.
let's go. Let's go. We have time. So,
Yeah.
if you want to go more technical, we have time
Yeah,
for
I
that.
think so, I mean, after you get through those layers, to me, I say, "Hey, know the value," but depends. There's some products that are very, very complex, right? There's people
Mm.
who sell, like, software and
Right.
systems and have to do engineering sales, stuff like that, and so it comes down to product knowledge too,
Mm.
because depending on what you're selling, there could be a great, amount of questions that could come. Some people are gonna come and they're gonna be very detail oriented,
Mhm.
and the moment they feel like you don't know what you're talking about, you lose credibility,
Totally.
and therefore you might lose their business,
Okay.
right? And so there's some things that you sell that's going to require you to have to truly always be pursuing mastery of that.
Mm.
If things change, industries change, regulations change,
Yeah.
it just depends. You have to stay on top of it. It's like I don't want to go to a doctor
Mhm.
that is
Sure.
still only operating off of things that were like 20 or 30 years
Mhm.
ago, right? I
Yeah,
want
yeah,
them
yeah.
to stay fresh. The same thing is with sales when you're an entrepreneur. You want to stay cutting edge
Right.
and stay, on the front end. So that way you're not the person who used to be good.
Mhm.
You're the person who always is good.
Yeah. So there's a level of confidence and being innovative
Yep,
that
exactly.
comes with it. Okay.
Yep.
Do you think you use some kind of psychological
Oh
part of
yeah.
things when it comes to sales?
Yeah, so I'm not trying to plug. You already talked about Inclusale. I have a podcast called Inclusale,
Mhm.
and one of the things, I mean, really, I picked this up from the listeners, right? When I look at, want to get the algorithms and
Yeah.
stuff behind the scenes on who's listening and the episodes they're listening to most. A lot of people love psychology,
Mm.
and there is a lot of psychology in sales.
Mhm.
And I was kind of leery about teaching that. I went to school, I studied psychology, along with Christian ministries. But I was kinda leery. I'm like, "Oh, do I wanna teach psychology or
Mhm.
do I wanna share some of these things, how it works in sales?" Because some people will abuse it.
Mm.
And again, integrity sales is what I
Right.
really want to go after. But yeah, I talk about the psychology behind sales
Okay.
quite a bit on
Okay.
the Inclusale podcast.
Oh, that's good.
Mhm.
That's good. Well, if you guys want to know more about that, definitely go to wait, where are you? Apple Podcast?
Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. I'll tell you one thing. This is one episode is actually a lot of people tuned in for this one,
Yeah.
and I talked about the principle of key heuristics.
Okay.
So
Key
it sounds very, yeah,
heuristics.
key heuristics. It sounds very technical, but basically the premise is there's a lot of people who they learn like in video. I'm pretty sure there's this special language,
Right.
right? There's this language between videographers. Like if
Yeah.
I sit in there, you guys talking, you're like, yeah, the B5 code, five, this, that, blah, blah, right? Well, that's the same thing that sometimes happens
Okay.
with any product,
Mhm.
right? And so people or professional sales professionals learn this lingo and they're talking to their customer like they know. Like when doctors talk to you and they tell you something like,
You're like, I have no idea
can
what you're
you
saying.
just make it plain,
Right.
right? Well, that's what key heuristics is all about.
Okay.
It's like the you have to talk in a way that resonates with the person that you're talking to.
Totally.
You got to know how to simplify it.
Right.
You have to know how to take what sounds like Spanish and make it English or vice versa.
Right.
And so that's what it's all. I talk about that and kind of break it down a little bit more, but that's the principle of key heuristics.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome. But yeah, Inclusale, go check it out. Have you thought about doing video podcasts at all?
Yeah, so I did. I like podcasting
Mhm.
because, once you put it out there, it's out there.
It's
The
out
world could
there.
hear it, see it anytime while I'm sleeping. I could still be blessing your
Right.
life, right?
Right.
But I did this podcast called Word to Boost, and for a while I did do
Okay.
videos. And I want to get back to videos.
Mhm.
Videos, I think you said videos are king. I watched
Yes.
it. You're like, videos
Yes.
are king. You were
Yes.
right. Videos
Yes.
are king. People love to hear, to see.
See. Yep.
They like that full experience. And so I am going to get back into videos. It's just, I'm like, oh Lord, the effort,
Yeah. Well,
you have to put
let me
in.
know. I'm here to help.
I
So
know, I
I am
know.
here to help. Let
Yeah,
me know.
I love
Okay.
it.
So all right. So move. Let's we're gonna transition a little bit more now. More than what you do with sales,
Mhm.
more than what you do as a chaplain, more than what you do as a book. The most important job you probably have is in your home.
Mhm.
So as a wife, as a mom, how do you juggle everything that you're doing?
Ooh. Next question. Just kidding. No. I think it's hard. Let me just say that because if somebody is like me and you're struggling, I don't want you to walk away and be like, man, like I just keep hearing everybody say have together. It's hard. It's a
Mhm,
struggle for me. And sometimes I'm like, am I being a good wife?
mhm,
Or am I being a present enough mother? Am I showing up, at work or for my business ventures and all that stuff enough? And I question that a lot.
right.
But truly, I pray. I'm prayerful and I'm just like, Lord, give me the ability, give me the capacity, give me the wisdom to know what requires most of my time and my effort for any given season.
Mm,
Right. And I seen I read this on somebody's like profile and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so true. More recently. And she said, once I realized that the role of mom is the only title that nobody can take away, I started to
mm,
look at how I spend my time differently.
mm,
That really hit my heart
yeah.
because I'm like, yes, I can talk about Jesus and share my faith as a chaplain. I'm incredibly honored. I've been able to do that for, I think it's 10 years now.
Wow.
I'm incredibly honored. It's like, you get to show up and talk about Jesus, like,
Yeah.
sign me up.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's really
Right.
good.
And people want to hear it because you can
Mhm.
talk about Jesus anywhere, but there's a lot of places where people don't want to hear it.
Right.
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 Um, but I can do that with my son all day, every
Mhm.
day, and just minister and witness to him, teach him skills, because everything I know at some point could help him in his life, and so
Totally.
that just made me realize I wanna make sure that if nothing else, I'm a present mother
Mm,
and a present supportive wife,
mhm.
and then everything else kind of, funnels and falls through that.
Okay.
So, I think that's how I look at it. I try to be patient with myself. I
Mhm.
try to give myself the same grace that I do when I give my friends a pep talk who's
Right.
just like, "Man, I'm struggling." And I try to channel my inner Marshelle that's talking to her friend. I
Mhm.
try to be a friend to myself and be
Yeah.
like, "You're doing good. Just do a little less of this, do a little bit more of this." And yeah,
Okay.
that's how I
That's
get
awesome.
through it.
That's awesome. A question just popped in my head talking about Jesus. This is probably something you've never been asked before. Probably. I don't
Okay.
know. We'll see. Going through the Bible with what you do as sales in sales, where's the connection between being a Christian and finding sales principles that you use? Well, obviously there is.
Yeah.
With the framework that you use, there definitely is. What's the connection with that?
I never really looked at the Bible and thought about that. So you are absolutely right. I've never been asked this question, nor have I ever asked myself this question. But I remember I was at like a retreat thing with some other believers, and I was telling them about this. About Inclusale when I was doing. And this guy was like, "I love that." He was like, "There's so much connection between, being a believer and sales." And I was like, "Dang, he's selling me on this,
Mhm.
right?" Because he was talking about evangelism.
Okay.
Right? It's like you evangelize and you talk about your faith and you talk about your belief because you truly believe it, you're convicted by it. And he's like,
Sure.
that's the same thing with sales,
Mm,
right? But the most important thing is making sure, again, that integrity
right.
piece. You're not lying because there's a lot of people who will sell you something that you really think you need because they told you all all
Right.
the lies,
Right.
right? And so I think that's probably the connection is, I'm an evangelist and I'm a witness for the Lord, and I try to be faithful and do what He tells me to do, and really more than anything, live my life in a way
Mhm.
that honors who I say I follow.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I do the same thing in sales. I'm trying to help people
Okay.
and serve people.
Nice.
So that's how I would make the connection.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because a lot of people that listen to this podcast were also basically Christian entrepreneurs. Most
Mhm,
people, I think,
mhm,
and trying to connect the gap between what it means to live a Christian life, but also be an entrepreneur. Do the things that you have to do: sales, package yourself, brand yourself, market yourself, put
mhm,
yourself out there. Because in turn, the more people that see you, the more people actually hear about Jesus in some kind of way,
mhm.
right? So now, where do you see? I guess I think I mentioned I asked this a little bit earlier, but where do you see yourself in 5 years when it comes to the realm of sales or just family? Where do you see yourself going in 5 years?
I think with me, I'll still be doing sales. I moved to like an executive strategy type role
Hmm.
that isn't fully only immersed in sales, but it still has a component of sales. There's no business that doesn't have sales, right? Um, I think that I really want to just expand on Incluso a lot more. So right now, I'm currently in the tail end of
Hmm.
getting Incluso trademarked.
Okay.
That was something big for me, is like setting up the business
Hmm.
foundation. That's what I feel like I've learned in my many different trial runs with entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
is like creating the right business structure
Hmm.
and really doing that groundwork is important. And so
Are you
wh-
set up as a LLC?
I'm set
Okay.
up as an LLC. When I first Inclusel came to me, I looked it up because I'm like, sometimes when things sound good to you, you're like,
Yeah.
this can't be
Be
like new,
right.
right? And it's like nowhere. It was nowhere on the net.
True. I haven't heard
And
that
so I'm like,
anywhere.
I am gonna trademark this
Hmm.
bad boy. And so I'm doing the trademarking of that, and I should be on the tail end of it. And then from this, I really want to start um, getting a lot more into the career pathing,
Okay.
right? And helping with the sales enablement for people who are in service and that want to transition into sales. I've done a lot of research on like the earning potential of
Mhm.
service people compared to the earning potential of sales, and even at what would be the median in
Mhm.
sales. If I were to help, I think I wanna say like 1,000 or 10,000 people, it could mean $25 million in additional income and spending for,
Wow.
I looked specifically for the demographics of minorities
Hmm.
and women.
Hmm.
25 million of additional spending,
Wow.
right? Compounding, that's for a year.
Mm.
Think about that over 10 years,
Right.
12 years, and what that can mean for, their ability to invest in their children's
Hmm.
college education,
Hmm.
buying houses, right? Starting their own business,
True.
funding their own ideas. And so that's really what my motivation is one, really trying to be intentional of how many people I can help, how many people I can get these skills in, and really bridge the gap. When you first had that sales role, by the way, how did you get that job?
I think it was someone else that was within it. It was almost like a pyramid marketing thing.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was one of
Okay. I
those.
don't do those. I mean, we've all been exposed to that, right?
Yeah.
You're at the store and somebody's really nice and they're like, "My mentor's a
Right.
millionaire." You're like, "I just thought you were a nice person. I had hope." And you gonna do that to me.
Yeah.
Happens all the time,
Right.
unfortunately.
It does.
But I was really trying to get to the point of a lot of times the challenge of people who are in service that might wanna be in sales
Mhm.
is it's hard to get in, right?
Totally.
A lot of times it's because you were referred or maybe you already had a foot in the door and you proved yourself, you were a top performer, hitting your metrics on the service side and they gave you a chance. But even when I seen that, a lot of those people struggled
Mm.
and they didn't think they had what it took because they don't really have time to truly sell, get them where they need to be.
Mhm.
So that's what I want. I want to kind of be that middle person, helping people get those skills so they can go into a new opportunity and truly, you know, just go up on an upward
Yeah.
trajectory. It's
Yeah.
possible.
It is. So kinda like a coach, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
So you talked about, setting up the right entity for Inclusale. You're going through the trademarking, you're doing all of that. It's hard for creatives to start on that trajectory,
Hmm.
to start like, I'm going to create this business and structure it properly. For me, fortunately, my dad had a business. And so I was able to talk to him and I said, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. I'm like, all right,
Love
cool.
it.
So I was set up even before I bought a camera,
Hmm.
like my business was set up to go. I rebranded, so I had to go through that all over again. Which is not that hard, honestly.
Hmm.
Like talking to people that are out there that are thinking this is hard, do it the right way the first time because it's not that hard. You could figure it out yourself.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
now with the trademarking part of it, are you doing it yourself or did you hire an attorney?
I hired an attorney.
Okay,
That one's very
it
challenging. I
is.
I pride myself on, like, I know how to read,
Same.
I know
I
how to
looked
read
into it. I
instructions.
was like, yeah.
Right, and actually, I tried to trademark something many, many years ago, and, they turned it down. They kept giving me pushback on
Mhm.
stuff, and then it expired, and I lost my money. Like, they don't
Gotcha.
play. They ain't giving you
Yeah.
a refund.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't get the trademark, and you don't get your money back, and so, this time I was like, "I'm just gonna pay somebody to do it."
Mm, nice. I'm walking through that right now with Creative Collection.
That's awesome.
Hopefully, I don't go into any roadblocks, but trying to make sure I get the trademark because there's a lot of things that have been popping in my head of what I want to do. So yeah.
I'm gonna tell you guys this little tip, though. 'Cause I've seen businesses do this, and I would if I would've did this a long time ago when I did my first trademark, I actually would have gotten it. So, if they give you pushback because the name is
Hmm.
or one of the words is too common,
Yeah.
right? The best thing to do is to merge it into one.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was like, a brand I was trying to develop called Wifey Couture back then,
Hmm.
and they said it was too close to another brand that had a trademark, and then the word wifey and the word couture were too common,
Hmm.
and so what I should have done is just made it one word, Wifey Couture,
Hmm.
and it would have just been new,
Really?
right? But I
Okay.
wouldn't have did a material change,
Hmm.
which would have cost more money, but I didn't think about
Yeah.
that,
Gotcha.
right?
No,
And
that's
I got exposed to that working in corporate spaces and, in leadership roles. I would see a lot of people would do that. They
hmm
would just take those 2 common words and make it into one word.
right. No, that's good. That's good because yeah, I'm most likely gonna get an attorney to just do it for me because
Get
I
the
went
attorney.
on the website and I was reading. I was like, no.
Yes. As an entrepreneur, that's a big thing to learn too, is really being able to quickly assess when it's worth doing it on your
Right.
own, right? To save on that cost investment versus when the time investment is too much and it's worth just paying somebody to do
Totally.
it.
Totally, for sure. So, with growing Inclusale, growing that to where it's going to be, how could people, you know, be a part of what you're doing now?
Yeah, so you can go to inclusel.com, do the contact or try to connect, right? To join a newsletter. We'll be having some information go out. I do not like to spam. I don't like wasting communication either, right? I want to say something if I'm sending something to you.
Yeah.
So you could do that. Definitely tune into the podcast, the Inclusel podcast. So Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast.
Mhm.
Check that out. And of course, I'll be keeping you up to date, usually in the outro. I'll say, "Hey, this is new," or "What's going on?"
Okay.
So those are a few easy ways that you can, get connected.
Nice. Awesome. So if we were to ask you words of wisdom, what would that be? Like, how could you drop some nuggets into our spirits today?
Ooh, I thought I already did, but
Oh,
I
you did.
guess.
You dropped like a bunch for sure
From what respect? Like, as an entrepreneur, as a creative?
in all things.
Okay, in all
Yeah.
things. Um, I would say be true to your convictions, you know, and don't be afraid to try and test new things out.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times this has been I'm kind of a perfectionist
Mm-hmm.
and you can always see somebody who's doing it 10 times better than you, which will make you feel like you need to have the biggest, the most newest thing, which might be out of your budget. To me, I feel like test it out, start with what you have, and just truly believe that you are enough
Mm-hmm.
and go into it with that belief and with that conviction and know who you're talking to, right? And just talk to your people. Don't worry about having, everything together because a lot of times there's so right now I truly believe somebody who's watching this, you are the best at what you do
Mm-hmm.
and nobody can compete with you, but you're just not in the market
Mm-hmm.
because you're afraid and you think that you have to have all these things. You have to have it perfect and polished, but no, people are going to love you because you're unique. God has sealed you and has purposed you to do it. So I would say do the thing, right?
Okay.
Do the thing, start, and just know that you're just gonna get better and better with time. My second book was better than my first book, my
Mm-hmm.
third book, right? I just keep getting better with time, but if I never started, I wouldn't have been able to get better.
Right, right. And the thing is, no one is perfect. So
You're right,
you can
yep.
never. We did a recent podcast about that.
Well,
Like
except on social media, everybody's perfect.
the highlight reels,
No,
right?
exactly.
No one is perfect. You'll never get it right, like perfectly right, because we live in in a fallen state. As men, as women, we've
Mhm.
sinned, we've fallen short of glory of God. We need God to to help us. The only
Right.
person that is perfect is Jesus. So from that framework of mind, because we'll never be perfect, just do it. You'll
Yep.
get better as you go.
Just
You
do it.
know,
And you'll
prac
reach who you're supposed to reach,
right,
The people who
exactly,
you're not,
exactly.
don't worry about it.
Yeah, practice doesn't make perfect, it just makes you better.
Yep.
So I really don't want to end this podcast. I feel like there's so much more. I feel like there's so much more. I'm trying to like think over here, like what else can I ask you that I haven't asked yet?
Yeah, all the good questions are gonna come once we stop
I
rolling.
know.
That's how it works with me. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Dang."
Yeah, and I just feel like there's a lot more, to what we're talking about here because you know what? Let me do this. I've
Uh-huh.
been writing a book since 2018.
Yeah.
Since 2018.
It's okay because I have a book that I've been writing since 2012, and my
Yeah,
family is like, "When's this book coming?"
really.
I'm like, "Don't stress me."
And you know what? Now everything is connected, right? So 8 years ago, 6 years ago, I got this idea to write this book, and I was like, no one's gonna want to read this. Like, no one wants to know about like how I became this creative that I am. And I think this was about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, about 2 a.m. in the morning. I work late at night.
Mhm.
That's the best time for me with two kids running around. It's just I
Yeah.
just I log out for like 4 hours and just get stuff done. So working at 2 in the morning, and I feel like it was the Holy Spirit that dropped this in me. It was just like the tr- the framework on how to get from create knowing your gift, knowing what God has purpose in your heart, and creating a business, and that's really the foundational belief of what that book was gonna be. And I still haven't
Mhm.
written it. Like, because I thought that no one was gonna listen, no one's gonna read this, but now 6 years later, it's still the same thing that the Lord is speaking to me in a
Mhm.
different way, but it's still the same thing. So now, how dare I now take that and do it? And I
Mhm.
feel like that's the same thing with my gift. How dare I be given this gift and
Mhm.
not do anything with it?
Yeah.
You
You
know?
actually posted something about that,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Look at him, just dropping gems," It was something you were like, "Every laugh, every tear,
Mhm.
it's all gonna be used,
Yeah.
it's all." And I was like, "Yes,
Yes.
yes," It's like that. I think that fear of judgment
Mhm.
and people looking at you or, exposing yourself because
Right.
a lot of people are out here, they ain't exposing themselves. Like I said, there's a perception of perfectionism that we see on the net.
Mhm.
And really quick too, I want to say this.
Yeah.
This is really important.
Yes.
I feel like the Lord gave me this a long time ago, and I'm like, thank you for sharing that with me. It is so easy to look online and be like, man, they have a great marriage. Oh,
Mhm.
they're the perfect mom. Oh, they cook too, and they
Mhm.
work, they do everything, and it just looks so good, right? And that could be who they are, that could be who they're aspiring to be, so they're putting that image out, we don't really know. One thing the Lord told me is, it is so important not to speak that you want somebody else's situation over yourself.
Mm.
You know, like how this whole like relationship goals and
Mhm.
this, that, and the other. I see people and I'm happy. I love seeing people do
Yeah.
good, but I'm never going to see them and be like, man, I wish I was like this person. Or I wish I was like that person. Because for all we know, when people, when you start going through marital struggles and your kids start acting crazy and you're like, why is this going on? It could be because you were speaking that person's situation over yourself and you don't really know what was happening in their
Wow.
house.
Wow.
And so the Lord told me, like, don't do that. You can be happy, you can be encouraged by that stuff, but you be prayerful about what you want your situation to look like. And then you take action to pour into that,
Mm.
into you having good relationship with your kids, into you having a good relationship with your marriage. But don't wish somebody else's situation on yourself because you might really get their situation and you don't know what their situation is.
Facts. This is true. We look especially in this digital world, everything now is digitized. We go online, we see this, we see that, and we want
Yeah.
that, and we don't know what else comes with it.
I sorry, but Google, I'm mad at you because that new phone where it's like, take that pose, watch that pic, that whole thing. I'm okay. The sound is good until I realize now it's even harder to know what's real.
Mm. Yeah.
You could just look like you jump in the sky, you flying, and our
Exactly.
young kids are watching this stuff, and they're in their minds are like, I should be able to fly, I should be able to
Right.
do this stuff, but it's not real.
It's
And
not
it's like,
real. It's not real.
I have a love hate relationship with technology.
Same. Same.
You
I,
know.
I did. I had that for the longest time where I would be on social media, then I would just completely go off for 6 months. And I
Hmm.
think that especially knowing that my business has to be online.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think that's probably there's a lot of things that I did wrong when it came to social media, and that has hurt me right now. And
Yeah.
there's I'm just fighting back to get back to where I was, you know.
You got it.
And I was looking through like just my archives and like just stories, you know, like they said post organically, post do this regularly. I used to do that, and that's where the growth came. But then I
Mm,
stopped doing that, you know, and now I'm trying to get back to like continue just doing that and post the lives that people don't see. You know,
mhm,
the ones that are like, hey, we're just here, we're pushing, we're doing this thing one step at a time. I've said on here I have a full-time job. I need a full-time job right now,
mhm,
you know, in order to continue to do what I'm doing. But we've been building, we've been growing, and this is
mhm.
where we are. And it just continues to go up from there. So
And, I love that you're so real and transparent about that
mm,
because, again, there's a perception of what the situation is, and then
right,
there's the reality, and
right.
when people, share something and then to let people walk away with this implied
Mm,
understanding when they know sorry, these allergies have been
nah, it's
getting me
all
this
good.
season. Um, this implied understanding, they can be like, "Oh, yeah, these people think I'm just running this business, that's all I'm doing." You don't have to expose that you have a 9 to 5 or you're doing a job, but
Mhm,
you do, and that makes people feel like they're less alone,
right,
right? They could still do this. They don't have to do all or nothing, right? Because
right.
there's some people who really should still be working a job and
Mhm,
doing, their thing, building their business,
yeah,
right?
totally.
I've always been that type of person. I'll say this, like, with for my entrepreneurship journey,
Mhm,
mindset is everything, and one of the things that I've always done is I've always tried to approach a job that I'm in as if
mhm.
I'm the CEO and as if I'm running that business.
That's good.
So you have an area of control, you have a role and responsibility. Run it like that. Don't wait until you're the business owner to do the right thing. Because at one point, you're going to have people working for you and you're going to want people who work like you, right?
Mm,
So sow those seeds, be that employee, run it like it's your business, put the time and the effort in, right? And then, you're getting entrepreneurship on the job training,
right.
right? On somebody else's payroll. Because one
True,
day you're gonna be the one having to pay everybody.
true.
So get the practice in now. Don't wait
Yes.
until you have your own business.
Nah, that's good. That's good. I'm glad I didn't stop recording. You know, this has been even, and I also have my degree in psychology.
What?
My bachelor's is in psychology. My master's is in sports psychology, which is basically
You
like
went double
I
down.
did, which is
Okay.
like enhancement, you know. So
Yeah.
I've taken that part of because I'm not working necessarily working with athletes. I'm trying to work with creatives, but it's the same thing, mindset. It's how do we get our
Mhm.
minds to actually know that this is the thing that we've been called to do. And I believe that everyone is creative. I
Mhm.
believe if we're made and created in the image of God, and being that the first thing we see God as is as a creative, then therefore we are all creatives.
I love
You
it.
know, it's just some people do not know yet. They haven't been awakened to that. They haven't tapped into their creativity yet. But we all have some kind of gift.
Yeah.
It might not be photography, it might not be the typical creative gift, but there is a way for you to be creative in your job. There's a way for you to be creative as an entrepreneur. There are ways, and so therefore we are all creatives. And then from there, I created determined this framework of believe in yourself, believe in who God has called you to be, believe in the things that He has put within you. From there, create using those gifts He has given you. Create
Mhm.
using the things that He has poured inside of your heart, and then move to the next phase is influence. Go influence other people to do the same. And that's
Yes.
what I am trying to do here
I love
with
that.
Creative Collection.
I love,
So
love, love that.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
this was good. It's good for me, just like you said it was for you. I love
definitely.
that.
Nah, it was good. It was a good conversation. I definitely want to bring you back for sure and
Okay.
really break down this sales strategy for people.
We'll
You
keep
know,
on keeping on.
yes, we'll do. So thank you guys. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for checking this out. Like I
Thank
say,
you.
everyone's created to create. So go create something.